Welcome, Roopa. Thanks for taking the time for this fireside chat. Um, if you would take a minute to just introduce yourself, Roopa, that would be wonderful.
I am part of Albertsons loyalty team. In the past 2.5 years since I've joined, I've led the mostly customer experience journey, so web and mobile analytics, test and target, loyalty, payments, call center, to name a few.
As this pandemic has unfolded, we've seen the entire population being heavily dependent on the grocery. And I understand that there's a significant trend up in revenue, demand, and all of that. What are the top three things that you are seeing in regards to sort of technology needs that have just popped up in the course of this few months?
I think one of the things that I found was, we went from 10x growth within a week or two. Thankfully, most of our e-com systems are in cloud, and it was much easier. I think that part of the whole equation, it's not just about customer, right? You need to also keep your systems up and run with the kind of scale we saw. The other is the customers are now very wary of touch. Coming into the store, touching pin pads. So a lot of those projects are now being executed as something that makes sure to get the customer feel comfortable coming in, and whether it's, mostly in the store space. Mm-hmm. The third is operational excellence, right? So it's how can you fulfill your order at the best of your capability, because a customer could just drive to the nearest any store and pick up the missing item. The customer is now coming to you because they don't want to go to the store. There's a lot of things that is driving a customer coming to a digital experience, to an e-commerce fulfillment, whether it's drive up and go or a delivery. And it's very important that we actually fulfill the needs to the, to the nth degree possible. There was a time when a lot of items were not even, our quantity was less even in the stores across every retailer, the kind of toilet papers, for example. So it was important for us to make sure that the customer needs are fulfilled, just what we call the last mile of delivery, giving them updates, when can you expect it? I think those things suddenly became more important. And a lot of emphasis and focus was put into the quality control of the delivery part of the business.
I understand that you all were driving towards let's do more e-commerce. How are you handling the systems going through that kind of step function change?
I think one thing that, like I said, our whole cloud journey, it's no longer the bells and whistles. It's about getting the customer what they want when they want it. Yes. So getting the end-to-end journey tightened up, and so there was a lot of shift in terms of our priorities. It's not about acquiring customers. It's now about keeping them. Making them. What's their lifetime value, and how do we engage them, and how do we differentiate ourselves from another e-commerce grocery delivery.
Yeah. So on that note, actually on that last note, which is a differentiation, right? As you look at the future, what do you see are the things that will differentiate you?
Well, I can't go into specifics, but I know, a lot in terms of personalization, a lot in terms of, reach the customer, the last mile delivery. It's very important now. The customer wants to know when they're going to get something, wants to be notified. There's more around how do you reach the customer, what are the mechanisms. You don't want to bombard 100 emails a month to a customer. So I think our focus shifting to how do we retain the customer.
Excellent. So let's talk about sort of contextual understanding of the customer to understand how enterprises are looking at understanding consumer behavior and therefore reacting to it, right? My premise here is that we need to understand consumer behavior, the consumer genome, as we call it, and really understand what context means in this new world where location is more important, where weather is more important, because the customer could be anywhere. They're not necessarily going to the brick and mortar store. So talk to me a little bit about how you folks are thinking about consumer behavior and how you think, the enterprises in the next sort of horizon will look at doing that.
I think it's twofold, consumer behavior in stores and
Mhm.
consumer behavior digitally. And both is going through transformation, partly because of COVID and partly just as people are engaging more digitally. When we look at consumer behavior in stores, we are actually looking at how do we personalize it a little bit more? How do we make them more loyal? How do they come in and how do we give them other benefits that's beyond just I've come to shop here. And then how do we incentivize? What's your reward mechanism? What is how does a customer feel valued
Yes.
to come back? There is drive up and go. There is delivery. Are there other ways people want to come and shop? How does it differ between when you are in a suburb versus when you're in a New York City, for example,
Mhm.
right? So there is your last mile delivery itself going through a lot of change.
Correct.
How do we personalize it better?
How are you thinking of using AI and ML in regards to understanding behavior and being sort of able to service that consumer need at a very high clip?
I think right now AI is everywhere. I mean, the data part of how we use data to see what offer should I give. Like you mentioned something about weather.
Yes.
When they're and based on past purchase, based on their information, do I know if they're what are they allergic to? Are they gluten free? Are they this? So there is so much more personalization that can be done in terms of how do we engage them, how do we reward them, so making it very context driven, making it behavior driven, making it more based on not just past, but also based on predictive. How do
Yes.
you personalize based on predictive analysis is becoming more important
Yes.
from a customer point of view.
Yes, yes. And two things that is very interesting to me. One is the weather personalization that you talked about. Is that something you guys are actively doing across the country?
I think once you know your customer, then you personalize, and you personalize based on weather, personalize based on other data elements. I think that's where we are focused on to create that customer 360 view for us.
Yes, yes. And with Amazon's Go, right, there is a lot of this sort of movement towards that. I think the other day, 7-Eleven sort of announced that they were doing some of that as well. So I'm just curious to know, what do you think of this trend? Is that, do I visualize my grocery store 6 or 7 months from now where I can do it all myself, or how are you guys thinking about that?
Definitely our focus to make customer be more independent, the self-checkouts or even having their own app for checkout. How can we personalize it? How can we make it more interactive where it's, I think people engagement is a big part of how we drive our stores and how, one of the things that I think Albertsons Safeway is proud of is generations coming to us.
Yes, of course. So one of the things that I'm looking at is understanding sort of this view of data is a democratized layer, which is that it could reside anywhere and I should be able to get to it through my cloud infrastructure, versus, the view of the CDP that says the data needs to be in one place and then I can take action. Where do you sit in that spectrum? What is the view? Is it that it could reside anywhere and I'll get to it, or the other?
So when you think about customer preferences and customer data in terms of a central way of looking at it, there are certain things that you want to have it centralized. There are certain things that you want to manage it. So there's a lot of other things that influences what we do from how we engage customers. Should I SMS this person an offer? This person never clips an offer. Why even give an offer, right? So for that, that's a different set of data, and that I think can reside, where you can access it from any system.
In the next 2 to 3 years, in regards to the trends in our industry, retail broadly, grocery with a subset, anything else that you are paying attention to particularly that we should be thinking about?
I think automation is one. We see a lot of focus on automation, and a lot of focus on getting getting smart in terms of, with IoT. I was reading an article on smart farming, just with data and IoT and, helping farmers revolutionize how we farm. So I think there is a lot happening around, one is around automation, which is more around stores and how you can automate simple mundane tasks like inventory counting. Mm-hmm. And the second I would think is all the, predictive personalization, the IoT, how great it would be if, my temperature in the car was 65 and I walk in, I drive, I get into my home and my home is synced with my car and 65 degrees, like just ideas about your Alexa and your shopping list and your store and, like everything can be so connected with how you want your seamless experience to be. And it's not just grocery, it's your home, it's your shopping list, it's your fridge telling you your milk is over. So there's a lot that you can personalize and you can predict based on data.
Yes. Well, thank you, Roopa, for taking the time. I appreciate it. And I look forward to continuing the conversation with you.